Now you can listen to Wine and Dine Radio while shopping at the grocery store or your neighborhood wine merchant. Wine and Dine Radio can be heard using your wireless internet on your cell phone. You're listening to iWineRadio. iWineRadio is a production of Food Tastes Better with Wine on the web at iWineRadio.com. Hey guys, I thank you for listening to iWineRadio, and we are still the only wine channel on iTunes Radio. If you go look under iTunes radio icon and scroll down to News and Talk Directory, and it's listed alphabetically, click on that and the stream comes up immediately. iWineRadio.com, where you can find links to individual guests. And if anyone's interested in advertising or becoming an underwriter or sponsor, please contact us at iWineRadio.com. We really, really appreciate your support. The more support we get, the more conversations I can have with fascinating people around the world, including you. If you have a story to tell that you'd like to share on iWine Radio, go to iWineRadio.com and contact us, and we'll go from there.
Hello, my name is David Wondrich, and I write about spirits and cocktails, and you can follow me online at David Wondrich on Twitter.
The 7th annual Les Partes Anges Cognac charity event raised a record sum of $177,046, donated entirely to charity. At this event in France, the 2012 Cognac Awards were presented, going to 2 Americans, and today we have the pleasure of meeting for the first time David Wondrich, who is a mixographer. He is the Hammer of Thirst and Hammock of Inebriety. No, I haven't had any drinks. Inebriety, and he is the supporter of global War on Temperance and the author of Imbibe and Punch. And he was present to receive this award as Cognac Writer of the Year. And I would like to ask you, David, what was this? Did this come out of left field? Were you surprised by this award, and what did it feel like?
Well, I was extremely pleased and honored to get it, Lynn. It had been announced. We had to arrange for me to get there, so that was several months in the making. So it didn't come completely as a surprise, but it was great to just be at Cognac. Really the founders of the modern spirits industry and the modern craft of the distiller, and to have this acknowledgement was wonderful. I've been a big supporter of cognac and an advocate for people drinking more of it rather than some of the less wonderful things that we drink kind of heedlessly here in the U.S. And so it was great to have that support recognized and acknowledged among my friends there.
I understand that the majority of cognac is consumed outside of France.
Oh, it's something like 97.5% or 97.2%. But that means they still drink, 5 million bottles of it in France, which is pretty good. They make a lot of it. There's a lot of cognac made. The whole area is just awash in grapes. But most of it, the U.S. is the biggest market, so they're happy to have somebody here advocating for them.
Well, what do you think of or do you agree with the idea of to increase consumption of cognac to this cocktails with cognac versus just drinking it neat?
Well, sometime in the 20th century, I think the cognac producers painted themselves into a bit of a corner by deciding that cognac was the ultimate luxury product, and that it was almost too sacred to mix into cocktails. Yeah. And, every producer believes that about their spirit, pretty much, that, they'd rather drink it straight just like they made it. But historically, cognac was always made into cocktails, going back to the early 18th century when it was, when the modern cognac, as the spirit as we know it first came together. Its biggest market then was England, and in England they mostly drank it in punch. So it's part of cognac's DNA, and I think it's better for them to recognize that and enjoy it and now they're starting to tailor some of their cognacs more towards that, rather than the sort of main commercial grade VS, which is very young and light. They're trying to get it a little more intense flavors in their younger cognacs, so that they can stand up to mixology and maybe a little bit of higher proof.
Oh, okay. And in some way, they're also, by doing that, they're going to be grooming people for the aromas and the flavors of cognac, so that they could be moving up the ladder.
Exactly so.
Yeah.
And and also just to really bring it back into the conversation for cocktails, because cognac makes wonderful cocktails. It always has. It's part of. That's my interest in it. Is always starts with history, and so many of the great 19th century drinks are based on cognac.
What does cognac taste like with ginger?
Ginger
I understand that's very popular right now.
It's popular. It's ginger adds spice to it. Cognac mostly has this kind of lovely roundness and grapiness, especially in the grades that are usually mixed. And ginger wakes it up a little bit and adds spice, but that's only one of the flavors you can add.
So give us some other ideas.
Well, cognac and lemon are just marriage made in heaven. One of my favorite combinations is cognac and a really dark, funky rum.
Oh.
And then you mix it with other things, but that goes back to the 18th, 19th century. The English always put some rum in their brandy punch, because that adds a little, let's say, not necessary, a little pleasing roughness to it, and some bouquet, and the cognac rounds it out and adds mellowness to the rum. And, you can make that into a punch or a sour or something like that. Mm. It works very well. Mint julep is spectacular made with cognac, as it originally was.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, before the Civil War, the mint julep was a pretty fancy drink, and fancy American drinkers really didn't drink a lot of whiskey. Whiskey was a rough frontier thing. It wasn't hugely popular. It was just starting to get popular before the Civil War. But cognac was very well established, and that was your spirit of choice for a cocktail, or especially for a mint julep.
And we are in the beginning of the cooler months. So are you including in this punch concept also even a warm drink? Oh,
hot toddies, hot milk punch with cognac is great. A hot toddy with just a little bit of sugar, a goodly splash of cognac, and some boiling water is truly warming and delightful. It works. It works in anything pretty much that you use whiskey for. Those are. Maybe a little less woody, a little rounder. You might want to add a little more spice, but it's quite delightful.
Whoa. So when you got back since you've been back from France, you've been traveling even yet more, right? You do a lot of traveling.
I've been traveling. I spent a week teaching the beverage alcohol resource program that my partners Dale DeGroff, Paul Packelt, Steve Olson, Doug Frost, and Andy Seymour and I teach once a year. It's a 5-day 14-hour day bartender boot camp that we teach here in New York, and that's pretty exhausting. And then after that, I was doing the International Chefs Conference here in New York, and then up to Boston for the Boston Cocktail Summit. So I've been busy.
Mm. And you always participate, and I noticed last year, big time, your name was all over the Tales of the Cocktail Conference.
Well, I've been going since the second one, so I'm kind of invested in it at this point.
Yeah.
And I have lots of friends that I look forward to seeing down there, and some of them I owe favors, so I have to end up speaking, and some of them I make speak for me.
Are you working on a book right now?
I'm just negotiating it right now, so I'm not going to jinx it, but I'm trying to do more of a reference book.
Oh, and that will be a teaching book also.
I hope so. Well, we'll see if it works out, but I think it will.
What do you think about this new, I don't know if it's so new, but it seems like there are more and more Europeans that are kind of joining the American bandwagon of making cocktails, such an artisanal movement.
Well, it's good to see. I mean, in the late 19th century, that there was a movement to do just that, and then it petered out a little bit in the 1960s. For a good long time there, though, there was a real culture of the American bar in Europe, and it's good to see it coming back. And adding to it and expanding. I was just, when I was just in Cognac, in the main square of Cognac, they just opened up a lovely little cocktail bar with a really well-trained bartender who knew all the drinks and knew all the techniques and had all the fancy bar gear and everything. And it was just lovely to see. It felt like it belonged there. So that was great.
And that bartender spoke French and English?
And English, yep.
Oh, excellent. I would love to.
He had tattoos.
Oh.
So he was very, very au courant,
And he was a French guy?
Yeah, a young French guy from Lyon.
Oh, gosh.
Very well trained, very, very good at what he was doing, and made just absolutely delightful drinks. And that's a real change. In Paris, there were always a few places you could get such a thing, but they haven't been in the smaller towns in quite some time. So it was great to see that come back.
And Americans have this love affair with ice, and they always say, what's the deal with ice in Europe? But this guy is actually using ice also.
Oh yeah, I mean ice can be hard to get. I was making cognac drinks on a boat in the Charente River in Cognac once a few years ago, and we had to get ice from the fish counter at the supermarket because that was the only place they had it. They didn't have ice for sale or ice machines or anything because there was no trade in bags of ice like you find here. So that was kind of amusing.
Oh, whoa, that's something to write about. If people want to be keeping up with you on a more regular basis, you are active on Twitter.
I am at David Wondrich on Twitter. That's my concession to social media.
And you you have a smartphone, so if somebody
I don't, so I'm kind of intermittent on it. I try to I try to avoid the smartphones because they are thieves of time.
Oh yes, I know. I don't have one either. So it's impossible, this obligation to constantly be. But there are conversations, I would think, that are going on in the hopes that you will join in the conversation.
Well, on Twitter, I drop in fairly often, so that's good.
Have you ever had a cognac cocktail where a piece of dry ice is smacked in at the end for the Halloween effect or something?
I have not. I can see that would work, but that's not technology I use at home, and when I see it in bars, I'm amused by it, but I don't seek it out.
What is, with all the fall fruit right now, on a closing note here, what is your favorite fruit to be using in a cocktail?
Well, really, it's just plain lemons.
It's lemons.
Yeah, just I like it very simple. I don't think I think the cognac has so much fruit of its own that I think if you add apricot or pear, et cetera, it tends to drown out the native fruit of the cognac. So,
if I was on a desert island and I could only choose one fruit, I agree it would be lemon as well. David Wondrich, we'd like to thank you so very much for joining us today on Wine and Dine to talk about cognac, and congratulations.
Well, thank you very much, Lynn.
Now you can listen to Wine and Dine Radio while shopping at the grocery store or your neighborhood wine merchant. Wine and Dine Radio can be heard using your wireless internet on your cell phone. You're listening to iWineRadio. iWineRadio is a production of Food Tastes Better with Wine, on the web at iWineRadio.com. Hey guys, I thank you for listening to iWine Radio, and we are still the only wine channel on iTunes Radio. If you go look under iTunes Radio icon and scroll down to News and Talk Directory, and it's listed alphabetically, click on that and the stream comes up immediately. iWineRadio.com, where you can find links to individual guests. And if anyone's interested in advertising or becoming an underwriter or sponsor, please contact us at iWineRadio.com. We really, really appreciate your support. The more support we get, the more conversations I can have with fascinating people around the world, including you. If you have a story to tell that you'd like to share on iWine Radio, go to iWineRadio.com and contact us, and we'll go from there.